Thank you, Chair. So this is application 2025-3531, which seeks approval to vary conditions 1 and 4 of the previously consented 2023-1249. So this is just a Tibenham in the wider context of South Norfolk, so obviously to the north of this, sort of south of Wymondham area. And then this is a more localised view of the site. So the site consists of a converted agricultural barn located in the open countryside to the north of Long Row. So to the north, the building directly faces onto a public right-of-way, beyond which lies open agricultural land. To the east, there's newly constructed residential properties, and to the south and west, there's existing residential development, with the barn somewhat visible from Long Row. Just for context, this is the public right-of-way, so it's just to the north of the site, so it's just on the map there in the hatched lines, and that's Tibenham footpath 28. So this is the elevations as built, so there's 2 Juliet balconies that have been built to the rear and 1 Juliet balcony that's been built to the front. The proposed elevations seek to replace the 2 approved windows on the north, so rear elevation, with Juliet balconies, and remove an unapproved Juliet balcony to the south, so front elevation, and reinstate the original approved window. So in terms of design, the 2 Juliet balconies on the rear elevation replace windows and face open countryside. The change is considered minor and doesn't materially harm the rural character of the area. In terms of amenity, the rear Juliet balconies overlook open fields and they're well separated from any neighbours, so their impact on residential amenity is therefore limited. The Juliet balcony to the front of the dwelling house, reinstating the original window on the front elevation, removes an unapproved balcony and improves compliance with the original design. The approved Juliet balcony will be removed and replaced, and that will reduce any perceived overlooking towards properties to the south. Concerns have been raised about the scale of the building, but the 2-storey conversion was already established under the previous permission. It cannot be revisited under this application. So the scheme is considered acceptable in terms of design and amenity. There have been concerns raised over the public right-of-way and about users feeling overlooked and overshadowed or overseen. The compliance, one of the compliance officers and myself have inspected views from the dwelling and the public right-of-way as seen in these photos. And while some overlooking occurs, the barn's conversion already created this relationship with the public right-of-way, and the difference between a window and a Juliet balcony in this context is not sufficient grounds for refusal. It's also noted that Norfolk County Council Public Right-of-Ways team previously raised no objections on this matter. Just in terms of other matters, it is acknowledged that concerns were raised over the discharge conditions application, and it's noted that the boundary treatments are being addressed separately on site under application 2025/3228. So in conclusion, the proposal is not considered to cause harm to the character of the area and not considered to unacceptably impact the public right-of-way or result in significant loss of neighbour amenity. So the recommendation is approval with conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, members? I think 1 window on one side and 2 windows on the other is the crux of it, and that application had already been approved in the past. So it would have already included the footpath as well in that original.
Yeah, so it already established that relationship with the footpath, yeah.
I've been advised that we need to do some reading out. So if you could do the objectors one first, please.
Yeah. Apologies.
So this is the lobbying that we've had.
So this is objector. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Lisa Carkeek. I am the neighbouring resident at West End Farmhouse. I have submitted a detailed technical objection report with supporting evidence. Today I will focus on 3 key planning issues which go to the safety and of the officer's recommendation. Firstly, the south elevation balcony causes acknowledged amenity harm. The officer report accepts that the Juliet balcony on the south elevation creates unacceptable overlooking. That is why it must be removed and reverted to a window. However, the recommendation allows this harmful structure to remain until occupation. The harm arises from the physical presence of the balcony itself, not from whether the dwelling is formally occupied. Occupation is an uncertain future event. The property is already complete and currently being marketed for sale, as shown in my evidence. This means the harmful structure could remain in place indefinitely, creating ongoing privacy impacts and future enforcement difficulties. Given the history of repeated retrospective applications at this site, members are entitled to exercise caution before relying on a condition that depends on future voluntary compliance. If a feature is harmful enough to require removal, it should not be allowed to remain under a condition that is neither time certain nor clearly enforceable. That represents a clear conflict with Policy 3.13, which requires protection of neighbouring amenity and privacy. Second, the north elevation balcony oversails the public right-of-way. These are not simply replacement windows. They protect outward beyond the building line and oversail the public right-of-way at zero separation. Users of the path walk immediately beside and beneath these projecting structures. This creates a materially different planning relationship. It introduces enclosure, a perception of surveillance from an elevated platform, and the practical issue that maintenance would require equipment to be placed on the public path. The officer report focuses on distant views to open fields. That does not address the impact on the primary receptor, the users of the public right-of-way directly below. In those circumstances, the proposal fails to demonstrate compliance with Policy DM 3.8, which requires development to respond appropriately to its context and relationship with neighbouring uses. Third, there is an evidence and assessment gap regarding the public right-of-way. No comments have been received from the public right-of-way team on this amended proposal. Members therefore do not have technical confirmation that the oversailing structures have been assessed for safety, clearance or potential obstruction of the route. Where structures oversail a public right-of-way, separate consent from the Highway Authority may be required under Section 177 of the Highways Act 1980. No evidence has been provided that such consent has been sought or obtained. Without this information, members cannot be satisfied that the impact on the public right-of-way has been properly assessed. Finally, the site plan relied upon in the officer report is inaccurate. Accurate plans are essential for safe and defensible decision making. For these reasons, the recommendation for approval is not a safe basis for decision. The south elevation balcony represents acknowledged amenity harm with inadequate mitigation. The north elevation balconies create an insufficiently assessed impact on the adjoining public right-of-way. I therefore respectfully ask the committee to refuse the application or at a minimum defer it pending proper technical assessment and enforceable mitigation. Thank you.
So the two things in there, one's a public right-of-way, which I think Holly said that had been cleared at the original application.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So that was that one. The under contract position at the moment, I presume in a conveyance in solicitors, they would know that these conditions have been put on to this application.
A condition to require removal of a window is wholly enforceable at occupation. We can understand the point of occupation, and that's an absolute point in time that you can understand when somebody's occupied through council tax, through evidence of seeing people in there, and that's wholly enforceable. So I disagree with the speaker and the objector in that respect. There's an ability to put an appropriate enforceable condition on there.
From that report that's just been? No. So I've got Ollie. Ollie's the agent for this. You've been waiting patiently, Ollie, so you know the 5 minutes, 1 minute routine. And giving your name as soon as you think. Just pull that microphone towards you a little bit, that's fine. Yeah, off you go.
Thank you. Afternoon now, members. My name is Ollie Jones. I am the agent for this application. Primarily my role here is to clear up some of the comments you've heard and some of the issues that you've perhaps seen here today. So most of what you've heard from that objector is has been going on for a number of years, and a lot of the comments that have been raised are actually based upon the development next door to this application, not this application. So if you were to go back and look at the objections, the same objector has continuously raised. They've actually objected about issues that are not to do with this application previously and just continue to copy those across, fully understanding what they're coming across and their points are. However, the primary point they've raised about the footpath with the prow, this has been resolved numerous times with the public rights of way team and with North County Highways. It's also been surveyed and checked by a chartered surveyor and has been cleared. The point they've raised about the footpath being blocked is actually not on this site. The footpath to the left and the right, as you look out of the dwelling, is actually blocked by people nothing to do with this application and is not in their control. And this is points they've raised time and time again, but the applicant is not in control of what is outside of their site. Right. They have made sure that the footpath is clear, as you can see from the photos, and during Holly's visit she saw that as well. There have been numerous changes during the planning process. This was primarily due to this being the developer's first development and perhaps not being aware that prior to my involvement with the application, there were certain changes that were made by a previous architect that were not relayed between the developer and the guys on site, and this is where the confusion has come. The boundaries have been conditioned and have previously been agreed. They were conditioned to confirm them, and they have been confirmed, and there is a current discharge of conditions application in for those boundaries to confirm exactly what is on site. Again, the neighbour says that these have not been positioned. They have been surveyed. There is a land registry boundary check done. There has been a survey done. There's been a topographical survey and a measured building survey again. So this has already all been checked. The footpath behind the dwelling, which you can see at the moment, was already in place. The developer has sought to make this more usable, even though it is blocked at both ends. And the public rights of way team are aware of this and I think have visited the neighbour next door. We did invite Councillor Easter, who raised this via the planning officer, to come and visit and to see, as the planning officer did, to see what is in place and what is there on site. I don't believe he accepted this. However, again, he is welcome to come and look at it and see what is there, because what is there at the moment is a Juliet balcony on the front, which is the change we're seeking to look at, to change that back to a window. Obviously, the applicant would prefer to keep the Juliet balcony on the front because the visual changes from a window to a Juliet balcony are not particularly material. They would prefer to keep it for obvious reasons because it's already installed. However, given that where the application is and the condition of the barn is finished, is not occupied, it is finished and is available for sale, they're happy to accept that they would have to change this back to a window if required by yourselves, but equally would prefer, if you were minded, to keep it to a Juliet balcony. The current barn is not under condition, so it is open for sale. It is not under a sale by condition at the moment. A sale has fallen through because the conditions haven't been cleared, so it has already been checked by a surveyor. So this is why we are keen to get this cleared up. The building regulations have been cleared and are signed off, and we are trying to ensure we get these conditions signed off as well, so the barn could be sold. It has been going on for a number of years, and they are keen to resolve this and get things clear. And one final point just to clear up is that the objector states that the balcony doors oversail and overlook onto the public footpath. This is not the case. Any doors open inwards, the windows open outwards. So this is primary of the Juliet balcony. The doors have to open inwards because there is glass in front of them. Hopefully that clears things up. I'm happy to answer any questions or queries you have regarding the application. Thank you.
Sorry, you've got me again. Yes, it's Councillor James Easter, so he's submitted a representation to be read. So, I've been asked by the Parish Council to call this application in for decision to be made by the Planning Committee based on the following points. 1, number of retrospective applications. 2, not built in accordance to agreed plans. 3, no attenuation tanks installed. 4, risks to flooding surrounding properties. 5, issues with the public right-of-way. 6, partially blocked ditch system on the north boundary. Since the first application, there have been a further 5 applications, he cites those, I'm not going to read them out, to amend the original plan, most of which have been agreed. However, I feel that any application made should include everything in it to build a property to design needed by the applicant. To ask for retrospective amendments suggests that what was being asked for would not have been agreed in the first place. It has been brought to my notice that the windows were changed without permission, now changed back to the original plans, well, almost. A cart lodge not in the original plan has been added and moved, now with permission. The report from Bly Engineers in relation to water disposal has not been followed. It recommends that geocellular attenuation tanks be installed to assist with the volume of surface water being generated and prevent flooding elsewhere. As far as I am aware, no attenuation tanks have been installed. Since the building has been built, there has been flooding issues along the long row with 3 properties being affected. The surface water from the property appears to drain into the ditch on the south side of the property, the long row side, and in light of the flooding it seems it is not adequate for the purpose, or it is blocked and has not been cleared. According to the water report, permission has been given to the applicant to discharge into this ditch and maintain it. The attenuation tanks would assist with this excess water. There is a public right-of-way, Tibidum number 28, on the north side of the property, which is very close to it. It is my understanding that initially a fence was built over it and air source heat pumps installed and obstructed it. Following a site inspection from the planning officer, the air source heat pumps were relocated and the fence moved back. However, the public right-of-way was still very close to the property, the ditch running on the north side of the property was partially filled in order to take the public right-of-way further away from the said property. I do understand that this application may be accepted, but the points I have made need to be conditioned to ensure they are carried out. Whilst I have not been able to inspect this for myself, it is not permitted and the ditch must be reinstated. It is there for a reason. Flow cannot be impeded. It has the potential to cause flooding elsewhere. To conclude, this property has not been built to the original plans and numerous retrospective applications have been made to try and change it to a new specification. The attenuation tanks need to be installed as advised by the water engineer in his report. The ditch on the south side needs to be inspected and cleaned to prevent further flooding of properties along Long Row. The tanks will help. The ditch on the north side needs to be reinstated to allow water to flow unimpeded. If the applicant feels that the public right-of-way is too close and affects their privacy, then they need to have it officially moved. Not a cheap process, but possibly necessary, as I understand the property is to be sold and any new owner would have an issue with this. Thank you. Yeah, I think I just clarify then. So clearly, that it sounds like there are a number of challenges in relation to enforcement and dealing with breaches and such. The application in front of you is very specific in relation to the window placement and the Juliet features. So that is what you need to determine the application against. Having said that, it is a variation of condition application and that results in the grant of a new planning permission. So it's a fresh planning permission, which we must reimpose conditions. So it's a standalone consent. So what we will need to just do is just check that whether any of the conditions need to be amended or anything else in relation to anything that's material. I understand there are some ongoing other matters and they will be resolved, but we just need to make sure when we re-grant the permission with the amendments that are being sought here, that it reflects the current position to make sure that we do protect those elements that have been set out. But as you are correct, Chairman, those other matters aren't material to this decision, and if you know
So these
things are, yeah.
Are taken from the previous application.
Yeah, correct.
To those conditions being met. Yeah.
So can I just, I know you've just said it, but I'll
You want to say it again?
make sure, you know me in my head. So there may be outstanding conditions on here that have not been signed off yet, and the officers from the relevant departments who look after those or whoever will be dealing with those and making sure that they get signed off.
Yeah, so it's essentially, if there, If there's anything outstanding, we'll have a look at as to, does it need a revised condition or does it just go back on as the same condition? Still, those conditions still need to be appropriately discharged if they haven't been already. If some of those conditions have been discharged, they're imposed in a slightly different way because it's just then complying with that rather than needing it to be discharged. So we do make sure we go back through the relevant aspects and conditions to make sure that what's then now granted is fit for purpose.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Any other comments, gents, ladies? No? So we go to recommendation, which is approval with conditions, and you've heard the arrangements about that. All in favour, please raise your hand.
That looks to be unanimous, Chair.
Unanimous, thank you. And then we just go quickly to planning appeals. And actually two of them are on development management decisions, and I suspect members might remember them well. I did ask earlier, inspectors.
It can take a varying length of time. We have had some back quite quickly recently, and we have had some that have taken a little while. So it can just depend, to be honest. It's
Right.
how long is a piece of string almost.
Okay, thank you. For help today, and